I've been a part of, Madam Chair, many processes I've been a member of the Hamilton Community Foundation. I've been on the Endowment Fund for the City of Hamilton, the Enrichment Fund. And I can assure you that if there was a radical departure of a board for an organization that I'm about to present money to without any real explanation, that would raise a flag. And yet, in your testimony, through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Shugart, you suggested there was no flags to be raised. How is that?
I've been very clear a few times now in answer to your question that those issues with respect to the We Charity Foundation were not raised in the subsequent briefing, and to my knowledge, they were not flagged as material for the examination of the ability of we to deliver the program.
Is it still your opinion with all the information that's been disclosed since then?
I think, knowing in retrospect what we know now, we probably would have inquired further. But I must also say that even looking back now, I have no evidence that the We organization, had the program gone ahead, would not today be able to deliver the program as set out in the contribution agreement.
So, Mr. Shugart, would you say that there's a rampant ethics problems that exists within the PCO, the Prime Minister's office, and the greater public service at large?
I certainly would not. We are governed by the Conflict of Interest Act. I'm very deliberately not going to pass judgment on questions that are before the Ethics Commissioner. That is his responsibility. But I would indicate that the Conflict of Interest Act is followed every day by public office holders with respect to declarations, the consultation with the Ethics Commissioner with regard to potential conflicts of interest, orders to divest, screens for conflict that are set up, sometimes beyond what the Commissioner has called for. The Conflict of Interest Act is very definitely a living reality for our government institutions. With respect to how we made decisions and so on, a lot of it was virtually, as the committees are experiencing. Often at all hours of the day and night, given the amount of business and the extent of the impacts of the pandemic. People were pressed, people were tired. Some public servants were doing their work, but knowing that it was not being called on, and other public servants were under pretty unrelenting pressure to deliver. The same is true for ministers. With respect to the substance, I would say that none of us have been happy with the speed at which analysis had to be undertaken. In fact, we conveyed informally, as did the former government during the financial crisis, to the Office of the Auditor General, that we anticipated that there would be mistakes, and we set out our objectives in advance so that there would be understanding in the Auditor General's office about the constraints that were affecting things.
So just to make sure that it is on the record, on December 10th, 2020, I appeared at We Day in Ottawa after I had become Minister of Youth, and that was to talk to an auditorium full of youth at the National Arts Centre. And the second time I interacted with We Charity, Craig Kielburger personally, was over the phone on April 17th, 2020. I had a phone call with him as well as another member of his team at 11 a.m. in the morning. That phone call lasted just over 30 minutes, and we spoke about an unsolicited program in regards to youth entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and something that had been shared. As it was not something that I was considering, I referred it to officials. That phone call on April 17th was not in regards to the Canada Student Service Grant at all. I did not comment on that.
I'm tight for time. Thank you, Minister.
When we were at Finance Committee, you were asked a very straight up question, whether or not you had had any dealings with the Kielburgers or anyone from We Charity in the lead up to this coming to Cabinet. So why didn't you tell us about your meeting on April 17th with Craig Kielburger?
Madam Chair, these meetings are public. The question that I was asked is if I spoke with the organization in regards to the Canada Student Service Grant, and I answered that question truthfully and openly. A member today provided me the opportunity to provide the information in regards to the organization writ large, and I have provided that information for the record. I answered the question that was posed to me.
Sorry. Actually, the question you were asked was very simple. Did you have any meetings with anyone from the WE organization and lead up to Cabinet? They did not ask about the Canada Student Service Grant. You put that in. So it was a simple question. So my frustration here is when you're asked a simple question, did you meet with the Kielburgers? And you can't give us a straight answer. It makes the waters seem very, very murky for you. So, so my concern is that meeting, I think, was crucial, and yet you didn't tell us that. Why didn't you tell us that you'd met with Craig Kielburger?
Madam Chair, I think you have noted the length of the question, and I will take that time to respond. The member is welcome to refer to the official record and to see that that question was in context to the Canada Student Service Grant, in which the motion was put forward, and he can choose to interrupt, and that is an approach that he chooses to routinely take. I have set the record clear today as to the 2 times that I have personally interacted with the organization. I met, I went to WE Day on December 10th to speak to an auditorium full of youth at the National Arts Centre. That was December 10th, 2020. I was requested to have a conversation with the organization in regards to an unsolicited social entrepreneurship strategy.
Thank you. Well, here's the thing. You were asked a straight question, but of course, we've got the record. It's on the record. But the thing is of course you weren't speaking about the Canada Student Service Grant on April 17th because it didn't exist. It wasn't announced until April 22nd. So it's, again, this splitting of hairs that I find frustrating.
The question is very simple. The Prime Minister claims that he put the entire WE program on hold on May the 8th. Minister Chagger, did anyone in the government at that moment direct WE to stop administering the program when the Prime Minister did that on May 8th? Yes or no?
Madam Chair, that was a lengthy question, but I'll provide a short answer, not that I'm aware of.
That's strange.
I go to this contribution agreement that I just want to say, like, everybody felt comfortable with WE because you guys got invited to a lot of their events. I'm not saying you did anything wrong, but they created a comfort level in WE. But we look at their contribution agreements. We're looking at a $40,000 deal, a $24,990 deal, a $17,050 deal with the government, a $13,000. There's a couple, maybe there's one that goes up to $3 million, but most of these are really peanuts. But the government was more than comfortable with the Kielburgers because you guys all spoke at their events. They called up the ministers. They weren't even registered to lobby. My final question is, you do due diligence on your file. Don't you feel that if we had done more due diligence, we wouldn't be in this debacle right now?
Thank you.
I find it astonishing that you didn't know anything about the details of $1 billion program in your department until you got to the cabinet meeting where that proposal was presented. I was minister in your department back in 2015, and I can tell you if $1 billion program in my department were going to cabinet, I would have known about it before getting there. So just to confirm, you knew nothing about the decision to give this program to WE until it actually got to cabinet. Is that what you're telling us?
I knew about the parameters of the program, as I've testified. I did not know who was being recommended to deliver the program till I was briefed on May 5th.
That's an astonishing admission. that you would have, I think it's an act of, it's political malpractice that the minister responsible for the department wouldn't know about a $1 billion program her department was administering. At the May 5th meeting, cabinet meeting, was there anyone from the Prime Minister's office present?
I cannot recall.
All right. When the contribution agreement to flow $500 million through was signed, did you see that agreement before it was signed by Ms. Chagger?
Mr. Poilievre, I don't see the contribution agreements in front of any of the other ministers to whom I've delegated that level of authority. It'd be the same as I don't see contribution agreements within Minister Blair's department either. Well, they're full ministers with their own lines of responsibilities.
Right. The difference is that Minister Blair has a different department. This was your department. Your department's letterhead was on this agreement. And again, astonishing that the minister responsible for that department would not be up to date on a contribution agreement of this magnitude. We're not talking about a small $25,000 grant. We're talking about $500 million. And really, you got to ask yourself who's running the show in this government if the ministers responsible for a department don't even see the details of such proposals before the money goes out the door. You listed the things that this Canada Student Service Grant was supposed to do. Track hours of youth, train youth, and so-called onboard them to organizations. The Canada Summer Jobs Program actually does all of those things. It delegates them through charities, small businesses, and other groups. Can you name even one thing that the Canada Summer Jobs Program could not do that the Wee brothers could?
Well, first of all, Canada Summer Jobs does not help individuals get the jobs like the CSSG was going to do for students, whether it be help prepare resumes, help with training, help getting ready for the interview, be a mentor. The other thing that was very real in the nonprofit sector at this time was lack of capacity. They were saying, even if I could get 5 people, I don't have time to onboard them, to train them, to oversee them meaningfully. So this was what the delivering organization was going to do for nonprofits, for capacity in that sector. It was much more hands-on than anything done with the Canada Summer Jobs.
Well, that's just false, because the nonprofits that deliver the Canada Summer Jobs Program across the country do all of those things every single year. They hire young people, they train them how to do their jobs, they tell them the hours they're supposed to work, they track those hours, they file reports with all of that information. So everything you've just listed is done by not-for-profits through the Canada Summer Jobs Program. The only difference is that it has a real word, jobs, rather than a fake oxymoronic term, paid volunteer. So really, you haven't given us a single reason why the program that already exists could not have delivered what you were trying to accomplish, supposedly trying to accomplish, with the Canada Student Service Grant.
I believe that I have, in addition to the, stretched capacity within the public service itself. I respectfully disagree that these programs weren't significantly different, but respect that you don't see it that way, and I don't know what more I can add. Well,
your claims so far are not credible. The idea that the Wee brothers and their foundation was going to teach and train a young person in Red Deer how to do work at a soup kitchen or a homeless shelter from afar, over by email or by Skype or something, is simply not credible. Of course, that training would have happened by the local organization itself, just as it does with the Canada Summer Jobs Program.
Well, as I have said before, I'm not a fan of having penalties or punishments meted out by the ethics commissioner. I believe that belongs in the criminal courts, but I think the repercussions of continuous contraventions of the act will be felt sooner or later, and that's why I pointed to Section 19, that it's clear that compliance with the Act is a condition of the person's being in their job. So that ultimately there will probably be some effects of having contravened the Act, whoever you are and whenever it occurs. You know, there are some extenuating circumstances in the current case, in the sense that we're in a strange pandemic situation. So it's just, I'm not surprised really. You know, I think the main power of the Conflict of Interest Act is in preventing these things, as I said before, and in each decision that comes out is an educational tool in and of itself to show all the other reporting public office holders and public office holders where it is they could fall down, and one hopes that everybody will learn from a particular contravention on a particular person.
I want to follow up with the question that Mr. Dong asked in the first place. Does this current government have an ethics problem? I know the Prime Minister is now under his third investigation. I'd be very curious to hear your comments on the current ethical practices of the current government.
Oh, the Prime Minister is one member of the government. The Prime Minister, I believe, has his heart in the right place, basically. Maybe he's not as careful as he should be. I don't know. But you know, when you look at how the various things that have been handled to this pandemic, I thought he'd done a good job on that. And we're in a strange situation right now. But I just think all of the people that are in government need to be brought up short when they do something that that contravenes the ethics rules. But I'm not going to, it moves on, and these things pop up from time to time.